welcome to the HOD podcast, episode 3. We're so happy that I managed to get all you guys in the room. We are actually live from our seminar that we just finished. I hope you guys have enjoyed. And today we're trying to bring some value to our customers as always. So I'm going to do a brief introduction for who is sitting on the table today. So on my left, I got Arash Zad, the big boss real estate lawyer in town. Everybody knows about him. Super active on social media. So thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Miraziz, the boss and CEO of POA.ae. So welcome.
Thank you.
And my long-term friend, buddy, real estate problem solver, mortgage boss, Sawan from Home Matters Mortgage and Mortgage Direct.
Thank you for the warm introduction.
I know. Did you guys enjoy the seminar?
It was
It
brilliant.
was fantastic.
It was great. Yeah.
Now you're going to execute on everything you learned today, yeah?
We're going to try.
Okay, guys, so what I'm going to do is we're going to start discussing a little bit about the topics that are hot in the real estate environment right now, and then we go to questions and answers to some of the users that are coming to our platform. So let's talk about Expo 2020. Probably the last 6 months, I've been reading a lot of articles about it's going to be good for the market, it's not going to be good. There's a lot of points of view, and I would love to hear from you, Sawan. What are your views on Expo 2020, and how you believe that's going to affect prices and the real estate environment?
Well, the Dubai government has spent a lot of money on the infrastructure to accommodate for Expo 2020. With the expectation of about 20 to 25 million people coming over that 6-month period, and with some of the regulatory changes with longer term visas, along with mainland ownership, 100% mainland ownership, I think with that many people coming, it's got to be a good thing. Dubai just won't allow that to fail, given the amount of investment that's gone in, and that's my view of it.
Yeah, I agree. What about you, Maris?
Yeah, also, of course, there'll be a lot of positive change in the market. And I know a lot of people are worried about what's going to happen after the Expo.
Yes.
As Sawan said, given the rulers of Dubai and how Dubai developed, within the past decades, I think we should not be worried about what's going to happen after that, because obviously there are some plans that's going to be implemented, So this is my view.
Arash, want to bring your 2 cents in?
Well, yeah, I think 2020, basically because of the large investment, as Sawan said, it's going to bring a lot of more attention overall globally toward Dubai. Dubai was doing good in general from the marketing perspective, but this will have a huge impact on the market, especially on the real estate and corporate matters as well. So what we are facing even from now is that lots of inquiries have already began, and people are asking about what are the opportunities, what are the situation, how do you see the future of Dubai. So I'm not even worried about after 2020, because I think that will be only the start. People will see the impact, will see the size of the event and how globally this will be received by people. And then after that, you will see lots of attraction. You will see lots of inquiries and people that they want to live in this country and own a property or have a new business in Dubai. I think it's all positive.
So you actually feel already there is inquiries coming in through
Absolutely.
with new business opportunities.
Absolutely.
Yeah?
It already began, yes.
So how does that leave real estate? So would you say, someone, because obviously you're on a mortgage transaction, daily inquiries, so would you feel today sellers should cash out, or they should hang on for a longer period? What is your view?
Well, I think it really does depend on when the seller or investor had purchased the property, and for what purpose, I guess. Was it an equity gain? Was it the return on investment through the rental yields? Was it a combination of both of those? If it's just purely equity gain, then I don't think it's the right time to sell. Obviously, if this property was purchased back in 2010, 11, then there may still be some upside to it. But generally, I think where the property is located, where what type of rental yield it's producing, what type of property is it, an apartment or a villa. I think all of these factors play an important part to making that decision of selling.
Yeah, and also I think it depends on the type of the investors, because now, for example, if the investors purchase the property to make money, let's say in 2015, for example, maybe for them it's not a good time to sell because the prices went down. If they plan to keep it for long term, I think then it's better to keep at the moment, or they can, for example, differentiate the investment by selling the property and investing in the new projects that are coming up in the market. And a lot of developers are offering very good plans at the moment, So I think it depends on the investor type.
And that actually drags me to the next question, Arash. I mean, you see now developers offering, a very competitive way to allure some buyers to, instead of going by on the resale market, to take a leap of faith and buy off plan again, because there was a point in the market that the off plan idea was something that people are not so comfortable, and the last 12 months we see an incredible increase of purchase of plan. What are your views on this?
Well, one of those methods that they are using is the post-handover payment plans, which, to be honest with you, I'm not really comfortable with the whole idea, because it's a new opportunity, it's a new motivation for the market, and it's really working in their favor in order to sell off plan, because a lot of people, they are not able to get mortgage from the banks. Maybe they don't know him, so they have to but at the end of the day, they would definitely look forward to buy a house rather than renting. Then they will enter into this post-payment plans. But what concerns me, this is what I have seen for the many years in Dubai, that there are new ideas that was introduced. However, there are so many gray areas. There are so many things that have not been evaluated or has not been introduced properly. So I don't like to see that this will follow the same route, So if it's something that they are benefiting from it, so the education should be there. The right evaluation should be in place. For example, credibility of those people. If an investor comes and buy a property and then they are offering him 3 to 5 years post handover,
plan,
I agree that the title deed will not be transferred to them. It will not be under their name. It will be under the developer's name until they finish.
Correct.
So the developer is on the safe side.
Yes.
They're not going to lose anything.
No.
They sold the property. There is a payment plan. If you follow through, they will register the property under your name. If you don't, they have the right to withdraw from this deal, forfeit whatever you have paid, and life goes on for them. But what happens to the economy? What happens to the overall trust and overall feeling of people who want to come to Dubai and invest? So this is something, I think, is something that it requires more of attention, just to make sure that they are not offering something that people cannot follow through, and people that they are qualified, they are actually been checked, background checked, credit bureaus, they are approving them. All this has to happen. If this happens in this method, I believe it's a brilliant idea, and it will have a very much bigger impact on the real estate market.
But Sawan, on that light, over the last 12 months, have you guys been doing mortgages more for off-plan, people taking handover, and because a lot of developers done the 30-70 payment plan with the view, you pay 30% over 2-3 years, and then by the time you get handover, you go apply for the mortgage. Or you see a rise on mortgage for resales. What's the balance of the equation?
Majority of our cases are secondary market.
Majority.
End user. But we have seen a steady rise in last payment finance when the handover takes place. I think one of the, going back to that last question, I think, what I'm finding is that in today's market, most people get into an off-plan sort of situation to benefit from the premium that they would get at handover. But we're seeing a lot of handovers coming in below premium. So there's negative premium right now. And if you look at price per square foot in many locations, you're finding that ready properties are at similar or close to the off-plan purchase values. So that benefit is eroded to a certain extent. I think that post handover payment plan, I agree totally that there are some risks associated there. The post handover payment plan do suit some because there are no interest, there's no cost to that funding which is post handover. But it's very important that the risks are mitigated.
But there's always a risk, even if you buy off plan with the idea that in 2 years you're going to get finance. You might be not in a necessarily good job or in a position for the bank to approve you by that time. So there is always a risk with that, right?
Yeah, I mean, there are many developers who are encouraging buyers to make the full payment through a mortgage at the time of handover and offering discounts on those accelerated payments. And you're absolutely right. Your situation today could be very different in 3 or 5 years' time. And if you're unable to then secure a mortgage, then it becomes tough.
Miraziz, what's your 2 cents on the subject?
Of course, there are risks involved, both for the developer and for the buyers, because for the developer, they are selling, in a cheaper price, and offering very optimistic payment plans. And for the buyers, as you mentioned, they might not get a mortgage, by the time of the handover. But I think it can't be done without risks. So in each case, there is a risk, So I think it should be taken in a positive way. I think the market is dictating what should happen. And then we should just, see what's going to happen then, after a few years.
And if you look at the real estate environment, if you take a look back 5 years ago to now, what are the changes that you have seen, whether it's in law, whether it's, like, for example, of attorneys? I know they have changed a lot in the way you could use them and procure them. So what are the positive changes you're seeing on the ecosystem of real estate the last 5 years?
I think the market is getting mature, and also we've seen a lot of end users became interested in property purchase. Before it wasn't the case. Before only investors were interested to purchase, but since the market is getting mature and the prices are getting better, more realistic, end users, like normal people, started thinking about purchasing a property. I think that's a very good thing that has happened within the last 5 years.
Because they also signal they have a long-term view. Just
Exactly.
In the city, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
What about you, Arash? What have you seen? I'm sure there's so many legal aspects to the positive changes we've seen.
Well, for the past 5 years, there've been few. One of the things that I think also helped in this regards. For example, when it comes to something legal but related to the real estate, is the punishment of bounced checks. Say, for example, if tenants, they were giving checks, and it was for something like 30 to 50,000 dirhams, and it gets bounced, the landlord can immediately go and get a judgment against them and put them in jail. So the recent change was this, that checks below 200,000 dirhams, which I guess is most of the rent checks are within the same range, from 1,000 to 200,000 dirhams. They will not be subject to imprisonment, which I think is a very, very positive thing for Dubai. And another thing that I have seen, because we had lots of gray areas, this is what I was just discussing earlier at the seminar as well, that there are many things that have been introduced, but in time it got perfected. It got those gray areas, it become more clear and more vivid to people that where they are standing. So one of the things that again I think it was a good move was the tarakhisi system. There were lots of posts on the websites promoting themselves, or perhaps advertising real estate properties on their portals, which turned out to be fake ads. you know. So now the government is controlling this, and basically all these ads needs to get a license for it, get a permit for it, just to make sure that everything is real. So I think that these are some of the improvements that we have seen through the last 5 years till now.
So in terms of the future, what would you like to see happening in the next 5 years in terms of changes of process and procedures?
I think, from a mortgage perspective, I guess, having a dedicated government entity to overlook and to regulate mortgages, I think is very important. It'll curb some of the mis-selling that's happening in the market. I think if you look at, a more advanced jurisdiction like the UK, things are very transparent, very streamlined. In the UK, we have key facts illustrations, initial disclosure documents. Now, with the way that the processes are built here, you've got to engage and a real estate agent. You've got to put a security deposit check down. Now you're making that decision based on some of the information that you've received from professionals, and unfortunately, a lot of the banks also don't provide transparent information. So when you go down the line in that process, you then realize at some point that actually, what I'm getting is not what I was promised. And that creates a bit of an issue, because you've then got a timeline within the MOU contract to conclude the transaction, and you're well within the journey. So I think, having a little bit of a regulation, some structure around that would definitely help the market.
Miraziz, what do you think could be put in place to improve or just to move things forward in terms of bringing more transparency, or that will give the consumer further confidence? Because what we're talking about is confidence in the end of the day, right? We want to have as much tools as possible to enhance, as he was saying earlier, okay, you cannot imprison your tenant anymore, which is fair enough, but how do you secure the landlord to make sure that if my check is bounced, still I have a problem, I haven't paid, I haven't got the money for my rent, and now, I'm losing on the equity on the investment I made. So what are your views?
I think it would be very helpful to have like a common standards for the property transactions. As you know, for example, whenever an investor or a homeowner wants to sell a property, before actually that transaction happens, there are certain steps to be taken. NOC from the facilities management, NOC from the developer, and in that case, each developer has its own rules and requirements to give that NOC, and it's different from developer to developer. And sometimes you find developers that have put requirements that are unachievable, and then they ask a lot of documents and then deposit of payments in order to issue an NOC.
It's not
this might,
straightforward,
yeah, exactly. This might delay the process of property transactions. So it's it's not convenient both for the seller and the buyer. I think if there be common standards of doing the transactions, I think this would change a lot.
But I think there's work in progress with that matter, because it is an objective to make everything paperless and blockchain oriented when it comes to transactions moving forward,
from the Dubai Land Department, everything is streamlined, and actually they have made a lot of things online.
Correct.
But before it reaches to the Land Department, there are steps which are
correct.
Exactly.
You're right.
Yeah.
Sometimes I guess we all have to remind ourselves that we're really an infant
100%.
compared to some of the other.
I couldn't agree more.
20, 25 years as far as mortgages, real estate's concerned, and we've had we've gone through huge strides in that period. There is lots of improvement yet to be made,
Of course.
but the progress is constant.
And it's in an incredible pace, actually. We obviously talk about the pain points here, but if you look at the bigger picture, what has been achieved is tremendous.
Yes.
In terms of problems, right? So let's go to the problem-solving situation. What are the, from real estate, what are the inquiries and issues that people bring to you on a more constant basis that the consumer
Well,
wants answers.
Yeah, actually, what I've seen is that obviously lack of knowledge when it comes to the legal aspect of real estate investments. For me, because I'm really focused on the real estate market when it comes to my practice, I've seen so many investors that they have entered into a transaction without knowing the A to Z of the transaction.
Yeah.
Nobody has explained to them. Real estate brokers, some of them are professional, but some of them they just want to, close the
quick
deal,
buck.
and yeah. So the right education doesn't happen. In my opinion, they have to work on this segment. So we have access to certain number of investors. The problem is that normally people they'll come to us only when they are in trouble.
Yes.
Only when they did the mistake. Yeah.
Expensive. Lawyers are expensive.
Good that you brought this up. How do you know that?
No, I'm not
That's-
talking about your blogging channel. Like,
It's a
lawyers are
prejudice, huh?
expensive,
That's a
yeah.
prejudice.
Oh my God,
Exactly.
if I put
Nobody
myself
knows
in
this
trouble, no.
unless if they come and ask. Do you know that I share my information and I share my
you-
knowledge for free?
Yes.
Is there any lawyer doing that?
No.
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
No.
So that's
I
the
take
thing.
that back. I take
All right.
that back. Okay.
Good timing. So that's it. Because when people they come and ask me, I wish if they have asked me this question like a month back, because I know that I could have helped them big time for a smaller fee, but they can avoid bigger
problems, yeah.
damages. Yeah. Mostly it comes from lack of knowledge. They don't know what exactly they are doing. They're just looking at one target, which is buying a property or acquiring something, and that's what they are focusing on. They don't see the other elements which is involved in this transaction. So that's in my opinion, that's the major
Because
thing.
emotions are in place. We want
Absolutely
something in
true.
life you want. Like,
Absolutely
I
true.
want that now, and you wouldn't get into the process of doing
Yeah.
the due diligence. What about you, Sawan?
One of the biggest challenges we're seeing is, when one takes a mortgage is property down valuations. Because ultimately, if a property is at a certain purchase price and the valuation comes back lower, the banks will lend on whichever is lower, either the purchase value or the valuation. And many buyers are not aware that they would have to bridge that gap. So they've accounted for that 20-25% deposit, and they're ready with the funds there. But when there is a down valuation situation, that puts them under huge pressure. I think it's important again to educate buyers to say, well, look, you can mitigate this quite easily by having a subject to valuation clause on an MOU contract.
Which it's not there lots of times.
Which unless you're asking for it, they're not standard.
No.
So I think that is a big challenge in this current market.
So basically, to break this down, and this is quite a very important point, you sign a sales and purchase agreement, you have Form F, you expect the bank to value the property at the price you sign, the valuation comes much lower, now the bank's going to give you money on the valuation, not on the price that you purchase, and now I'm in the situation that I have to come up with the extra amount of money which I wasn't counting on,
Yes.
and that's just my new kitchen gone away.
Yeah.
And you're stuck with the MOU because that clause didn't necessarily was included.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's a very fair point.
But that's the point that we jump in, because if the addendum or the agreement has been drafted in a proper way, considering the situation of the buyer, we normally put that clause that it depends on the mortgage approval, it depends on the evaluation of the property, and we precisely say that we are looking for this much of a mortgage to be approved. So the seller is aware, buyer is totally ready for it, contract is clear, no doubt about it, then they will enter into an agreement. So if you know all these small points, you will put it in practice, and as Miraziz said, a deal can be very sweet and safe. But if you don't apply all this to your transactions, then definitely the risk will be much higher percentage.
Okay. So we are all here in the service industry. I mean, we are a marketplace. We make the connection between the property owners direct with the buyers and tenants. So technically, we don't have the middleman unless the people want to. So, but the middleman discussion goes beyond real estate. It's just hitting everybody in the service industry, because now your currency is your value. With technology, blockchain, paperless, there is a question to how much people need the human element. That is what the industry thinks, but the consumer is starting to, in my view, head the other way in terms of behavior. So how do you stay afloat in your business, Sawan? Because mortgage, you are in the middle. There is always the point of, I can go straight to the bank. How do you add value, and how do you add value in the industry?
So I guess, look, firstly, we have both platforms. We have options where there is a professional qualified mortgage manager that can service any client's requirement. We also have a technology online platform, mortgagedirect.ae, where you don't need human interaction, and you can apply it through to a mortgage fingertips. You can get all the best mortgage products available. Now, as far as the technology part, we've got that definitely covered. And I guess the second part of your question was relating to.
Well, as somebody in the middle, right? So what you're saying is, we have the direct option. People can go to your platform, they can fill up all the forms, and they don't need necessarily to pay that fee, and they can still get a mortgage.
Yeah. So,
but if you're not so empowered or educated or sure, you have the option to go through your mortgage brokerage as well. So you're giving consumers both options, which is perfect.
Absolutely, and I think, look, the industries are very different in that sense that for a mortgage intermediary, we do volume business with the banks. We're able to negotiate better terms and rates with majority of our panel partners, and then we're able to pass these discounts on to our customers. So there is a direct financial value add there, unlike real estate, where if you go directly onto a website, the costs are lower rather than using a broker. So there is a financial benefit. And of course, as far as service levels are concerned and technology is concerned, we've covered those bases.
So you're that service both ways. At the end of the day, it's a consumer's decision how they want to use the service.
Absolutely.
What about you, Miraziz?
I think what is important to consider is what value we add, by acting as a middleman or a service provider. In our case, the value that we add is an expertise, because we are doing, for example, certain services, let's say power of attorney, drafting or representation on daily basis, and then we know what are the ups and downs, what are the possible issues that might come down the road. So if somebody is doing a transaction, that person might not know about it, beforehand. So by acting as a middleman, we add our expertise to it. And also at the same time, we have to consider the technological developments. We have to streamline our business activity to that. For example, in case of POA.ae, we have created a platform, for example, for people to order a power of attorney online, without leaving their home or office. I think this is how we keep up with the market.
Arash?
Okay. There is a list of professions that they say that they're gonna stay safe and AI will not replace them. Attorneys is in the top of the list. Well, so, so I'm kind of safe over there. But no, the whole idea, jokes aside, is that what we do as a lawyer, So say in a litigation or in any cases that we encounter. So there is a case, we dig into it, we review the case, and what we do, we look at other similar cases. That similar case, we have to find out how we can use that in favor of our own clients. So that's the precedent, right? And when we do this, then we have to go through the process of decision making. The decision that we are taking will definitely have a direct impact on our clients. AI can never replace this. AI can never do this. It's impossible. There are certain things that you can give a data and they can process it and then come up to a conclusion. But this decision making process is something that it has to be handled by a person basically who is experienced in this regards. So from that side, we are safe. However, as I told you, it will have an amazing impact in a positive way in our business. Right now in our offices, most of the things is automated. Literally everything is going paperless. So this is helping us in saving time, saving money, and easier way of interacting with our clients. It's something that has already started. There is no way back, And the government here in Dubai also, they are very, very much keen to implement the blockchain and all the knowledge about it. They are trying to bring it in and use it in the best way in people's favor. I think it's a good thing. We have to all benefit from it.
Okay, that's great. So what I want to do now, we got a few questions that some of our viewers want to refer to my phone. They write to us on a daily basis, ask for questions, but since you guys are the experts, the answer should come from you. So I'm going to start with you, Arash.
Sure.
So Mohammed asked, I love this question actually. I sold my property and signed an agreement with the buyer, but the buyer backed out of the deal. Can I get the deposit check and then sell my property to someone else? I love that question.
Take my deposit check back. So, as
I
I
say too
understood,
quickly, or me to do it?
I think I understood it properly. I think if I understood it in the right way, they have already signed an agreement. The buyer backed out of the deal, and now seller wants to resell.
Yes.
In that case, seller cannot just go and resell because there is a agreement in place, and they are obliged to see it through. If the buyer has backed out, he has to get a revocation of the agreement signed between both of them. So it's either they both agree to revoke the agreement and move on, or if they don't, then the seller has to go to the court and ask the court to get involved and then revoke the agreement. The deposit check also will be the same. I'm assuming that the deposit check is kept with the real estate agent.
Yeah.
In that case, the real estate agent most probably will not hand over the deposit check to the seller. He has to ask the court again.
That's so important. The real estate agent cannot give the check to the seller.
Well, they shouldn't. Otherwise, the buyer will get a chance to go and sue both of them.
I hope that is clear, because a lot of people live with this impression that by giving the check to whoever it is, even to a lawyer, that if things don't go the way they think, they can just go and collect the check, and that's not. Only the courts have the power to decide
To
with the
revoke
money.
the agreement and ask for.
So that's
handover.
super important, which brings back to the discussion early, like do your due diligence and educate yourself. Don't go just to the emotion when you are purchasing a property, right?
Exactly.
Okay. All right, Sawan, why should I use a mortgage broker instead of going direct to the bank? I think you covered that a little
I
bit,
did
but
indeed, yeah.
elaborate a little bit more, yeah.
So we work with 28 banks, and through these 28 banks, we're able to assess each individual's requirement and fit that requirement to a specific bank that would cater for that requirement. I think that's very important, rather than a client having to speak to 28 different banks to understand which bank would accept and give the best terms. By coming to us, we just take that work away. We know which bank would fit and which product would be the best option for the client. Of course, there is also savings to be had due to the discounts we receive on mortgage products.
So you pass that on to the consumer.
Yes.
So in terms of, I'll jump in for another question, fixed rate or variable rate, what's the difference? Which one is better for me?
Well, there are benefits to both. With the fixed rate, you know what you're going to be paying for a certain period of time. Most banks here in the UAE offer fixed rates between 1 and 5 years. What's important is to understand what happens after that fixed rate, right?
True.
So that revert rate or follow-on rate should also be attractive. As far as variable rates go, right now certainly we're getting many clients asking for variable rates. I think the Fed decided to keep the rates, and since we're pegged to the US dollar, decided to keep the rates stable, and the expectation is that the Fed rate will also come down further. So anyone going into a variable rate could benefit from a reduction of cost of funds in the coming months. What's also important in that scenario is to look at if there is a bottom cap on the variable rate, because some banks will say that this is the variable rate, but it's a minimum variable rate. So important that you're also considering that you can benefit from any rate cuts that happen.
Okay. Miraziz, let's talk about gifting. Somebody asked a question, who can you gift your property to? And because that has an impact on transfer fees and things like that as well, yeah? So how does that logic of gifting work?
Technically, you can gift your property to anyone you want.
Okay.
But legally, in order to transfer that transaction as a gift, you need to be aware of certain restrictions. According to Dubai Land Department rules, you can gift your property or register that gift as a gift transfer only in case if you're transferring it to your first degree relatives. And by first degree relatives, it's meant spouses, like husband and wife, children and parents. So you can gift your property to your children, to your parents, or to your husband and wife. Another scenario where you can gift your property is if you want to transfer the property from your individual name to your company name, or vice versa, from your company to your individual name. This is also this can also be considered as a gifting, yes. And I know there are a lot of people who want to register the transfer as a gift to avail that reduced transfer fee. Because there is a huge gap between the...
what is the amount? So a normal transfer will be 4%, but plus some admin fees, and how much?
For the gift transfer, you pay only 0.125%, which is considerably less than 4%, yeah.
Okay. We can always marry someone.
Are siblings permitted? Like if
siblings, no, siblings are not permitted. Even if in reality you are gifting your property to your brother, let's say, but you have to pay 4% because you cannot register it as a gift. So it's like, there are a lot of rules, related to the gifting. Sometimes there is a question of double gifting. For example, you may transfer your property to your parents as a gift, and then your parents can transfer to your brother. It's called double gifting, but this is not allowed because when it's gifted one time, it cannot be gifted second time. Of course, this is subject to the decision, and each time you can seek an approval. But if you are doing it only for the purpose of paying a reduced fee, then this may get blocked.
Okay, so watch out for trying to use that one. Arash, I'll come back to you then. So another good one. I love these tenancy contract questions. The tenancy contract with my tenant is already expired. I can't reach my tenant to sign the new contract. Can I just open the door and move in? Or what should I do instead?
No, definitely no. The answer is no, because if you have an expired tenancy contract, if even 1 day has passed from the expiry date and you haven't renewed it, automatically it means that the tenant is agreeing with the renewal. So if he continues staying in the apartment, and you don't have any objections, so the same terms and condition, you need to continue with them, unless if you give him a legal notice prior to the expiry. When the door is locked and the owner has not repossessed the apartment, he has to go to the rent committee and file a complaint and then ask for permission to open the door. Otherwise, the risks that are involved is that the tenant might come back and say that, hey, I had so many assets, golds, valuables on the apartment, and it's been stolen. So the landlord will be directly responsible for something like that.
So make sure you reach a tenant before you sneak
definitely.
in.
Definitely.
Okay, so I think just to finish one more question, we go to... What is the what is the most common misconceptions about power of attorney?
So number one misconception is power of attorney is a bilateral agreement between the principal and the agent, but this is not the case. Power of attorney is unilateral authorization. It comes from the principal side. There is no agreement on the agent side. So we get a lot of questions, can I give a power of attorney at the same time make the agent liable for certain things?
You're talking agent from real estate broker agent? You're talking about agent?
No, when we speak about agent is who is acting as a representative on behalf of the principal, yes. So the power of attorney is not a bilateral agreement, it's not an agreement, it is just an authorization. This is one misconception. And the second misconception is POA is valid even after lifetime of a principal. So POA gets automatically invalidated when the principal passes away. So it cannot be used after that moment, and if it is used, this is called this can be considered as a criminal offense if it's done knowingly that the person has passed away. So those are two misconceptions, I would say, that we come across with most of the time.
Okay, that's good. Sawan, to finish, gold key. This actually is such a good question because I know a lot of people are going through this right now. So I bought my property in 2014, 13. So my fixed rate is coming to an end.
Oh, wow.
And at the time probably was 2%, 3%, and now it's at 6%. What do I do?
Well, you have two options. One would be to remortgage or buy the mortgage out. I think in that scenario, really you've got to understand what the market value, the current market value of the property is, and the outstanding mortgage. Because of these loan-to-value limitations, you've got to keep within the loan-to-value. So if you're way off, then you may need to inject some capital to reduce the liability to be able to remortgage it. There are also associated costs when you buy out a mortgage from one provider to another. Along with the costs, there may be some penalties that the existing provider may have. So, you've really got to look at the whole scenario, all the costs associated, the cost benefit, and then make an informed decision as to whether it's the right thing to do. If it's not the right thing to do to move your mortgage due to the costs, or you're unable to keep within the loan to values, then the only other option is to do a rate restructure or negotiate with your existing provider.
But are they negotiating on the current market?
Well, some will. It just depends on, again, the relationship that you have with the bank and how long that's been going on for, and what other products you have with the bank, etc. As a mortgage intermediary, of course, we have leverage with a lot of these banks. So we provide both services. We're able to do the buyouts if it's possible, and clients can also engage us to renegotiate their existing rate with their existing provider.
Okay. Guys, thank you so much for coming. I'm going to leave you 30 seconds just to tell people how they can contact you. What's the name of your business? What you guys do? One more time. Okay. Go, Sawan.
Sawan Karia at Home Matters Mortgage Consultants. You can contact me on sawan@homematters.ae, or you can go onto our Mortgage Direct site, mortgagedirect.ae.
Miraziz from POA.ae, and so the website is very easy to remember. You can go to just POA.ae and you'll find all the contacts.
Arash, you're all over social media.
Oh no, not that much. I'm Arash Zad. You can obviously find me on all the platforms at Arash Zad, ARASHZAD, and the best platform that I can be reached is Instagram.
Cool. So just to finalize, I'm Cecilia Reinaldo, CEO of Homeowners Direct, HOD.co. Thank you so much for participating on this third episode of our podcast. I hope we brought value to our listeners, and I'll see you guys soon.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.